Please welcome Denelle Dixon, Chief Business and Legal Officer, Mozilla Corporation, for The Problem with Your Privacy.
The problem with your privacy. That's a pretty big topic. First of all, I'm so happy to be here on Data Privacy Day. This is awesome to be able to celebrate this with you guys. I could give you more tips, but you guys have had a lot of tips all day, and I don't think I could do any better than what you've had. We do, though. The NCSA has some, and Mozilla.org, if you go there, we have some too. We just released an 8-day data detox, which is a pretty cool kit that you could take a look at, so it's kind of fun to have that. So instead of doing all that, what I wanted to do today is tell you a story. It's a story, my personal story, about some things that I did last year with respect to privacy. Because when I looked at my own privacy, I never really had a care about my stuff. When it came to my kids, I was really worried. But for me, I was like, I get it. But let me tell you a little story. So in 2016, I was invited to debate at this 200-year-old debate society. It's called the Oxford Union. It was really cool. I debated against senior government officials from the UK and the US government, as well as Oxford students, on the topic of cybersecurity. It was truly my kind of fun. I loved it. But the coolest thing about it was that the gift part for me was that for the first time, my 3 boys thought that I was doing something cool. And it had nothing to do that I was at Oxford and had a debate there. It had to do with the fact that the video ended up on YouTube. And so they took this video and they shared it with their friends, and they were kind of having fun with it. And then my oldest son, who was 15 at the time, came to me and said, "Mom, you should take a look at the comments." And I was like, oh gosh. I was embarrassed, thinking, he seemed embarrassed about it, and I was thinking, what in the world could this have been? Like maybe I said something really stupid. So, first comment, I'd fuck that. Second comment, yeah, I'd fuck that too. Then a feminine sounding alias jumped in and said, "This is not cool. This is an articulate woman. We should focus on the argument." But I'd fuck that too. So here is my 15-year-old son, and also at the time, my 13-year-old son, trying to show some support for what their mom is doing. And then these comments were there for them, for my older son, and then my 8-year-old, who thankfully at the time was 6 and wasn't focused on the comments, to see. It was mortifying. So these commenters, they were not there to talk about my argument, to give me feedback. It was an opportunity for them to violate me and then to negatively contribute to my online persona, which is the funny thing because I actually didn't realize I had one. And I wasn't really focused on controlling my online persona until then. It was a substantial talk, both online and offline, and it was there was very little that was discussed with respect to that. So this is when I realized that I can't control my online persona because the trolls, and frankly everybody, gets to contribute to it. So I have a love-hate relationship with the internet. I love that talk was available for everyone, everywhere, at any time to see. That was pretty cool. But I hate that the internet made it possible for my talk to be seen, to have these commenters that were anonymous trolls just putting things there for my dad and my boys to see. It was once an issue that was reserved just for famous people, now becomes relevant to all of us. In a world where information is readily accessible, how do we control our privacy? The line between our online and our offline worlds is blurring, and our control over who we are is disappearing. We know, most of us in the room, that nothing is free. Not online, not offline. Most of us understand that there's a value exchange for those free apps and services that we use. We're vaguely aware that our information is being collected and shared and stored. You agreed to it when you hit accept on some privacy policy somewhere. But no matter how in control you think you are, You are not. You know, all of those Facebook photos out there, you don't actually own those anymore. And Gmail, it actually scans your email. Your iPhone, the phone that Michelle just threw, knows where you are at all times, even if your location services are turned off. But the truth is, I'm not afraid of Apple or Google or Facebook. For the most part, I trust those companies. I know what they do, and I know who they are. What I'm afraid of is that unknown villain, that person who makes anonymous threats, the company that I've never heard of, or the stranger that has unbelievable amounts of data about me. Everything you do online leaves behind a piece of you. Let's call it a breadcrumb. You might be thinking, I don't care. I'm so boring. No one could find anything out about me that I don't want them to know. But what about your searches online for pregnancy or abortion, divorce, wedding rings? What about the videos that you watch? What about your address, your phone number, your arrest records, the private support groups that you go to for cancer or religion? It's endless. It's very personal. Then, combine that with the information that I can find out about you offline. Where you work, where you live, where you go, and when you go there. Your marital status, details about your family. The list goes on and on. I can take your online information, combine it with what I can find about you offline, create a pretty massive dossier about you. Does that scare you? Let me tell you, it didn't scare me at all until I hired somebody to do it. So I'm a pretty private person. You won't find very many photos of me or my family online outside of work. I'm what you call privacy aware. I keep a low profile with respect to my family. You won't find pictures on Instagram or Facebook, that kind of thing. But what I know that society actually requires that some information about us be made public. So what breadcrumbs of me can someone piece together, online and offline? So I created my own villain. And we just gave them my name, Denelle Dixon. They were able to locate so much information about me and my family. What I did is we told them, don't go beyond me. Just keep it to me. But they were able to find my email addresses for the last 20 years, where I lived for the last 20 years, the cars I own, the cars I drive, which sometimes I don't own, where I live, where I intend to live, financial information about me. They were able to locate my divorce and custody proceedings and all the records, thousands of pages, that contained highly personal information about me and my family. This picture was taken in front of my house without me knowing. That's my oldest son. They stood out in front of my house and took a picture. And I never knew that they did that. They took more than one. It was amazing to read the dossier that they put together. It was simple. It only took them a few hours to know more about me than my parents do, certainly than my kids do. When my kids I showed them the report, they were amazed and also a little annoyed that they didn't realize people could take pictures of them out in front of our house. So the question is, what can happen when a villain follows the trail to you? #Gamergate. Most of you might know about Gamergate. Gamergate was a movement that used a hashtag as an excuse to harass people both online and offline. It all started when this guy posted some false accusations about his ex-girlfriend, who was a female game developer. The information about her that people were able to locate contained her address and her phone number And the harassment campaign spiraled out of control against multiple women and the social justice warriors, the men who defended them. Home addresses and phone numbers were found and shared online, and the release of this personal information resulted in real offline physical threats of death and rape and bombings. The threats forced several women to flee their homes. And one of the social justice warriors, the men, he sold his business and got out of the gaming industry altogether. Now, these villains were hiding behind anonymity, much in the same way that the commenters on my Oxford post were doing. They were never found, and they were never prosecuted. Now, all it took was one breadcrumb. One breadcrumb that led to their online profiles, that led to finding information and creating these real physical threats against them offline. Now, Gamergate began in 2014. Since then, some platforms like Twitter and YouTube, they've changed, and they've been able to use blocking technologies and filtering technologies to try to stop this kind of behavior. This is some improvement, but it's really not enough. Because, just last year, here in the US, during the whole political campaign, we saw these exact kind of tactics be used during that time. Soon, everyone can be victimized with their own personal information. Passwords are hacked, identities are stolen. This is why we need a better future. So let's fast forward. So in the future, we must all have more control over our own personal information, because it's going to be impossible for us to break the connection between our online and our offline lives. Imagine if we all had access to kind of like this dashboard here, and this control center, where we could say, there's lots of information, and if you followed the trail, you'd see that I had cancer, that I was divorced, and that I have financial information, but I can block access to all of that information. And I can also block access to my children and their information. And I can do that because they're under 18. What if we could use this? So when I'm in control, I don't want to share all the information that I just shared with all of you. Imagine a paper shredder for our digital footprint. Now, here's the thing. From a technology standpoint, this is actually possible today. In fact, companies have already built pieces of it. It's just that we don't have the ability to control all of our online information in one place. But we have the power to. We just don't have the ability through technology to do that because nobody's built it. Now, why is that? It's because we haven't yet demanded it. We can do this. We are in control of what we want to do with the future. And we have to look at this from the standpoint, we can use all of these, sorry, I think I went a little too fast. Let me go back. We can do this in 2 easy steps. First, we need to be accountable, trustworthy part of this global online community. Together, there are billions of us. Remember that there's a human behind every comment, every bot, every troll. And remember not to be part of the problem yourself. So what are you going to do when you see online harassment? Are you going to reply to it? Are you going to ignore it? Are you going to report the abuse and stop it from happening? That's what I did in the Oxford Union case. I reported the comments and got them removed. Don't engage with the trolls. If we do this, we're just giving them the power. Now, step 2. Demand that the products that you use meet your own privacy standards and your control standards. Make companies work together to create that control center. Make them work for you. Call them. Use social media. Email them. Stand up and tell them what you want, because here's the thing. It's hard to imagine this, but together, if we make these kinds of choices and we do these things, we can actually change the behavior of these companies. Vote with your feet and show them your power. So, what are you guys all going to do? I know what I'm going to do. And I know what I'm going to teach my boys to do. One of the things is we all have to remember that someone can follow the trail to you too. Thank you.